He's an old head.
Youngins are really starting to get on my damn nerves.
He's a purveyor of nonsense. He's a Georgia high school coaching job influencer. His favorite Bible verse is Jesus wept. He's the man of constant sorrow, Chris Lamb.
Yeah.
Welcome to Son Coaches Podcast, and today I've got a special treat for you. I've known this coach for 20 to 25 years probably. We started out Young Bucks together. He's been a head coach and an offensive coordinator most of his career, a native of Tennessee. He's now coaching at Rockmart. Coach Tracy Malone, thanks for being with me.
Chris, man, I'm going to tell you what. This is like, no joke, this is one of the highlights. I mean, we go back to the Georgia Dome, dude, and getting to do this with you is really freaking cool.
Well, I appreciate it. Well, Coach, tell everybody, where you went to high school, where you're from, how you got started.
Oh, man, that's interesting. All right, I'll try to keep it as short as I can because it's an interesting story. Grew up in a town right in the middle of Knoxville and Chattanooga, Athens, Tennessee. Went to McMinn County High, like everybody else. Played football, played baseball, ran the roads. Got out of school and ended up at Middle Tennessee State in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, with no plans, thoughts, or ideas of ever being a coach.
Didn't you play baseball?
A little bit, yeah, junior college, and played in high school. So I never intended to be a coach. As dumb as this sounds, man, I was playing really high level, slow pitch softball, and I guess when I got to MTSU my senior year in college, I had an extra semester thrown in there too. I was playing for teams, you were getting your bats given to you, your gloves, your batting gloves, your cleats, your travel expenses. If you played well, you got paid kind of deal. And had no interest in coaching. Never had thought about it until I had a 7 a.m. English class one semester there late in my time at Middle. And with a guy, and he had played football at MTSU and gotten hurt and had to get out of it, but he was wanting to be a coach, and he was a semester ahead of me. So anyway, fast forward, I graduated in December of 1997, but that fall semester there, I had to student teach, and I'm student teaching at a middle school. And this old boy, guy named Jason Sharsh, was already working there as a PE teacher, coaching middle school football, talks me into coming out and helping. And the middle school head coach was a guy named Ray Barnes. Ray had coached at Memphis and at Virginia Tech, and had coached at Louisiana Monroe, and he was at Vanderbilt with Bill Parcells. Ray was a D-line guy, and he had spent a majority of his career at Middle Tennessee State, and he was trying to get a few years to bump his retirement. And so I go out, and they convinced me to go out and help, and I'm coaching. I think I was coaching linebackers that year, as best I remember. And so we had like a little, championship season there and did well, and I was hooked. I was hooked, and I got a PE job that next spring and started it that next fall, and started volunteer coaching at Riverdale High School in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and it just went from there, man. So it was one of those things where it was, never intended to do it, but now that I've done it for since 5 years, something like that, I can't see myself doing anything else.
Well, when y'all were at Riverdale, y'all won a couple of state championships, didn't you?
Yeah, so really fortunate, man. And and it was funny. I was, I love, sometimes Twitter gets on my nerves, but I really like it because you connect with so many people. And I was talking to somebody the other day about, I know what it was. I was at Maryville College yesterday, meeting with their head coach, good guy, Ben Fox. I just called him, went up and spent a day. I'm on spring break, and we were both talking about when we were younger, we had both started at really, really good programs, and it was like winning just was easy. I got to coach in 4 state championships, win 2 and 2 runner-ups, and then it was just like, it was like, man, this is what you do every year. You win region championships. You're ranked by the USA Today in the top 10 in the country, and this is simple. And so, I had a desire to move up, and I was young and stupid, and I had those career goals written out. I wanted to be a varsity coach by X date, which I met that goal. And I wanted to be a coordinator by a certain age, and I met that. And I wanted to be a head coach, and I just wanted to climb the ladder. So we used to sit around that field house talking about, man, we all need to move to Georgia and go make some money. And so I was and you'll appreciate this, man. We were at the Extreme Clinic in Gwinnett County, Georgia, Dave Hunter's old clinic. And Next thing I know, I'm approached by a guy named Chad Estes, longtime defensive coach around Georgia, and is his best friend Stan Allen, rest in peace Stanley, and they hit me up about talking about coming to join their staff. And next thing I know, I'm the offensive coordinator at Monday's Mill, man. And so my wife and I find out we're pregnant and we're moving to Georgia in the same week.
Well, I hope to get to see Coach Estes next weekend. We have that Lee Murray GACA golf tournament, and he played last year, and I got to see him. So I hope I get to see him again. I'll have to tell him.
No doubt.
I'll have to make sure I tell him I had you on if he's not listening.
It's cool, man. He's really good buddies with our offensive coordinator at Rockmart, Rhett Parson. I mean, he is like.
Well, then he'll probably be there.
Yeah. I know. Rhett and Biff will be there. I think they work together. Maybe I'm not 100% sure, but I was there for a year, and then had an opportunity to go to Grayson as assistant head coach OC with Mickey Kahn. And that was really my first taste of big time ball in Georgia. Grayson they had been AAA and had been winning really big. And I go there and we're jumped up into 5A, and we're, and they're in there with Brookwood and Parkview and Collins Hill and that whole joint, man. And it just, I remember calling my Tennessee buddies and like, guys, I'm telling you, like every week you better have your shit screwed on tight because you're going against somebody's D1 player every stinking week. It just is what it is.
Well, no rest for the weary.
No, never. I remember we went to East Coweta and beat a Danny Cronick coach team, and I thought we won the Super Bowl, brother. I mean, it was like, I'd heard of him, and I'm like, man, this is a big win, and this is where Alan Jackson and Louis Grizzard are from, man. Great win for us. And then like the next week we go to Shiloh and get beat, so, but yeah, man, that was my first trip into Georgia. That'd been 2003, 4, 5.
So what happened after Grayson?
Oh Lord. So, I'm going to blame Chad McGee. Chad McGee was the D coordinator at Grayson when I got there, had played with Mickey at Alabama. And he had left the year before. So my first year at Grayson, after that year, he left. He went to North Alabama to be a head coach.
I remember. So
after that 2005 season, Chad calls me and says, "Look, there's a job open over here. It's my biggest rival. Superintendent asked me to recommend somebody. I recommended you." And so I go over and interview for it. I remember there were 17 people on the interview committee.
Was that Ardmore?
Ardmore, brother. A tiny town. Neatest little place, though, man. It's probably, when I was there, I think the school was 6 through 12 and had about 300 or 400 kids in it total. But we had $1 million field house, like legit $1 million field house. I always tell everybody that town had about 4 red lights all on the same street. Little small place, man. But it was so wild. Imagine like a cross or the Red Cross. Imagine like a plus sign. So on the bottom of that was Limestone County and Madison County, Alabama. And on the top of that cross would be Giles County and Lincoln County, Tennessee. Ardmore, tiny town set in all 4 counties and both states. And so got the head football job there in 2006, moved over early. My wife and kids moved over that summer. And they had been 0-10 the year before, 8-32 the 4 years previous. And we go in there that first year and we end up winning 8 or 9 games, getting the second round playoffs, and region runner-up, ranked in the state. I should have got out of coaching and ran for mayor right then. I'd have won. I'd have been in politics, and I'd probably had less gray hair. But great little spot. And, and then was there for 3 years and then decided, man, it's the typical football family, brother. My oldest son was born on the south end of Atlanta. My youngest son was born in Huntsville, Alabama. We had grandkids in East Tennessee and up on the Kentucky line. So left Ardmore and took a job at White County High in Sparta, Tennessee, kind of in between Knoxville and Nashville.
Get closer to grandparents.
Yeah, man, we did, and it was a weird deal. I was in the final 2 for the job at White County, and I was in the final 2 for a job in Knoxville. And just to be real, and no disrespect to the people in White County, there are some good people there. There really are. There are some snakes in the grass too, but there are some good people there. But I really wanted the one in Knoxville. But so I went and interviewed for the one in Knoxville on a Monday, went to White County on Wednesday the same week. And then that next week, I went to White County on Monday and was scheduled to go to Knoxville that Wednesday. And White County offered a job. 12-month contract, 5-figure football supplement, which was really unheard of in Tennessee. Indoor practice facility that I got to design and build. The money was there. It was just, Coach, how do you want to do it? And I remember calling the AD at that school in Knoxville and just said, look, man, I've been offered a job. What's the deal? And he said, listen, up here, we've got to follow a protocol. We've got to follow county policy. We've got to do second round interviews and blah, 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 blah. And he said, so if you feel like you got to take it, you got to take it. And so I ended up taking the White County job. And we went there and did some good things, man. We were only staff in school history at the time to ever go to back-to-back state playoffs and did some really good stuff there. And then that third year there, we got beat on a coin flip. We got, tiebreakers all the way down to coin flip, and we lost the coin flip. So, 3-year stint there, some good things, but in the end, it was one of those things where I was ready to move on.
So where did you move on to?
All right. So we left there and took the head football job at East Ridge High School in Chattanooga in 2012. And here's what's funny, and I say this with all due respect to the jobs that I've taken as a head football coach, but and I don't mean it in a negative way, but Ardmore, White County, East Ridge, and then the one after that, Whitwell, people were like, man, you are committing career suicide. Do not take that job. It's a graveyard. You're never going to win there, And so, we go to Ardmore, make the playoffs a couple times, do some good things, build facilities, numbers are up, improve the program, go to White County, back-to-back playoffs, do great things there, leave, go to East Ridge. And it was tough, brother. I mean, I'm talking about, I got the job in Tennessee. They have dead period in the summer, last week of June, first week of July. I got the job offered to me on a Monday. And I went to Tuesday. And I accepted it. And I went to my first team workout on Wednesday. And the dead period started that Friday. And there were 6 kids in the room. And one of them was a kicker only. So I go in and basically the principal was like, look, man, we don't have any spots. You can't hire anybody. You got to live with what you got, or you can fire them all. I don't care, but you got to make it work. So we take the job and, trying to move a family and we go there, man. And it was a tough spot. There were 16 different languages spoken in the school, most diverse school in Chattanooga at the time. I think it probably still is. But we did a 4-year run, brother, made the playoffs 2-3 times. That last season of 2015, went 10-0, won the region championship and ended up getting beat in the third round of the playoffs. It was the best season in school history. We had in Tennessee that, I don't even really know what it's called in Georgia. I guess I should, but in Tennessee, the best players in the state in each classification are named Mr. Football. We had a Mr. Football winner. And we did all that with a condemned stadium. We were on the road the first 2 games of the year, and fire marshal came in and condemned the stadium. And our stadium was one of those old home side concrete. My office was under it, the assistant's office, equipment rooms, locker rooms, storage, showers, bathrooms, everything. And so press box was gone, so we go to play our 3rd game of the year, which was a air quotes home game. And we had to go play it at Baylor, the private school up here. Thankfully they were away that night and they let us play there for free. But we ended up magical season, man. We went 10-0, like I said, and got to the 3rd round, and we had to move our 3rd round playoff game to the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga to play at it because the fire marshals and the people were like, look, man, you're going to have 10, 12,000 people at this game and you can't have it over here at your stadium. So we moved it over there and I knew what it meant to our players to move it, but we had to. And I know that those kids are still pissed at me, and I'm pissed at myself too. I hated to move the game, but we just didn't have a choice. So I was there 2012, 13, 14, 15. Got into real estate for a little bit, which was really stupid. I had a principal there that was just the guy that hired me had gotten moved to another school than the central office. And then I had a principal, inherited a principal, man, and she didn't care about football. She didn't think football coaches could be good teachers. She didn't really want to hire anybody. We were butting heads all the time. So got into real estate, and it was stupid. It was really stupid. The money was decent, but I'm the realtor running around wearing shorts. That's just who I am, and I'm a ball coach. So friend of mine was a superintendent over in Marion County, Tennessee, just outside of Chattanooga. And he calls, he says, hey, pal, I want you to be the head football coach at Whitwell High, but I don't know if I've got a teaching job for you at the time. And so sold real estate by day and went to coach football in the afternoons. And I live in Eastern time zone. Whitwell was in the Central time zone. lots of issues, but we ended up going over there and went to the second round of the playoffs and had a really cool year and to kind of set that program up. I remember telling the superintendent, I don't know how long I'll be here, but I believe I can set it up for you. And sure enough, we went in and we just bluntly, man, I got to be honest, fired the people needed to be fired and moved kids around and played 16 or 17 sophomores. And 2 years later, those kids are seniors and they win the state championship. So really proud of that. Really proud of that run of head coaching, from 6 to 16.
And it sounds like you didn't mind going into places, as you said, that people told you can't win there.
No, yeah, man. I look at it like this. I was fortunate to start my career where I started it, working for a guy named Gary Rankin. He's Tennessee's all-time winningest coach. He's won 480-something football games, 15, 16 state championships. He's been state runner-up 6, 7, 8 times. Heck, he was state runner-up this past year. But I always kind of looked at it like this, man. Kids at those schools, they need good coaches. And I feel like I'm a good coach, and I feel like, got a way to do things that can go in and maybe it's not the most popular way all the time, but, kind of know what good football looks like. And so been really proud of that, my trajectory up until that, that 16th season as a head football coach and kind of a young assistant coming up the ladder.
Well, and people sometimes they don't understand that you might have to go into places like that. And if you have a plan, I mean, when I was talking to Feaster at Long County, if you have a plan, you believe in what you're doing, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you get the kids on board, you can get it turned.
No doubt. I remember reading something when Feaster took that job at Long, and it was like, man, it can't win there. And that dude has gone down there and just said, look here, let's kick the door down and go do what we need to do.
Yeah, I mean, he's running Power T, which nobody does, and
no doubt
he's brought a system in, and the kids have bought into it, and it works. I mean, stuff works.
Yep.
So when you got, after your
16.
head coaching, after 16, where did you end up after Whitwell?
All right, so and it's funny because I've lived in Chattanooga since 2012, so I have been like the great commuter. We just fell in love with the city, but more importantly than that, my children. I mean, again, one born in Atlanta, one born in Alabama. They've moved all over the place. My wife and I have lived in 9 or 10 houses in our marriage. My kids have lived in 6 or 7 houses. It was funny. I saw some on Twitter the other day, and I asked them both. I said, where do you two, when you move out of my house and go be adults and be daddies and whatever, where are you going to say your hometown is? And they both just were puzzled as could be, like, we don't really know. Because they've been that they both kind of settled on Sparta, Tennessee. And I don't really know why they settled on Sparta, Tennessee, because we've lived in Chattanooga longer. But anyway, so got out of the head coaching gig after 16. And it was really more to do with just there wasn't a teaching job. I was a PE teacher, and Whitwell was a really small single A school, and there just wasn't a job. And I was getting out of real estate, wanting to get back in education for retirement purposes. And so ended up in Knoxville. Drove from Chattanooga to Knoxville every day, 2017, 18, 19. So my first job was at Austin East High School up there, just off of downtown. Great season there. 1 year there. We went to the state quarterfinals. And then I went to West High School as OC and quarterback coach. And we were at West for 2 years and probably two of the most transformative years for me as a coach in my career. Just believe it or not, that far into my career, working for a guy named Lamar Brown. Lamar was the first high school coach in the country that got on board with Brian Kite with the E+R=O and all that stuff. He had heard him speak at a clinic and went up and talked to him after and tried to get him to get on board. And basically Brian was just like, look, dude, I only really deal with college, pro, corporations. And I remember Lamar told me the story. He just said, look, man, how about I want to give you my number and you pray about it. And if you tomorrow or a couple of days from now, you don't feel like the Lord's leading you that way, I understand. But if you do, I would really like to partner with you. And he said, Brian called him the next day and he said, look, man, I just feel like God's put it on my heart. I need to do this. So I went there, and I will be as brutally honest as I can, Chris. I had never been one of those coaches that bought into the culture. I had never really been into that. I'd never been into the developing and building relationships. I mean, it happened, and I knew that it happened, but there was always sort of that wall, head coach wall, coordinator wall between players. And I mean, I had really good relationships with them, but it wasn't what it could have been. And so I go to West High and it's just a family. It's the first time it really felt like a family. And, and kind of sidebar on that, my oldest son played football for me for 3 years. My youngest doesn't. He played soccer. But my oldest played football at a high school here in Chattanooga as a freshman my year at Austin East. And then when I went to West, he wanted to come. And so he came up there for his sophomore year of 2019. We had this magical run. We go to the state semifinals, and it was great. And so after the 19 season, we get into January of 2020, and I get contacted about being the OC at Cleveland High School. Cleveland is down here near Chattanooga. It's a city school, so think Buford, think Gainesville. You got tuition. You can bring kids in from wherever. They're one of the 4 or 5 highest paying systems in the state. It was a huge raise for me, but I had no desire to take the job. I came down and met with them, and I did a little research and look, I don't really care. I could care less. The head coach and I were just an awful mix. We were an awful mix, and I'm more buttoned down about things and really organized, and he's really not. And so I wasn't going to take the job. I wasn't taking it. And my oldest son, Reed, was like, Dad, can I go just look at the school? Can we just go look at the school? I told him when he wanted to come to Knoxville, I said, son, this commute's going to be tough, brother. But he wanted to do it. He wanted to play for his dad, and I wanted him to, truthfully. So we come down and meet, and they've really rolled out the red carpet for him, man. The principal's son was his age. The AD's son was there. They took him around. They hit all the sweet spots for him, and they really put the full court press on me. And I remember it was Super Bowl weekend, and he was like, Dad, I want to make a decision. I said, Reed, we're going to take some time. We're going to push pause and take us some time before we make this decision. And so we met a couple of days later, and he had some really good points. He had really good points as to why he wanted to make the move. And so this is where my wife comes into play. My wife is a ball coach's wife, man, and she's always said, you football coaches are full of shit. You always say that you're going to resign to spend more time with your family, but you really don't. You always say, I'm going to make this decision. I made this move for my family. And she said, no, that's not true. Every football coach makes every move for their bank account and their career. And she said, that's just the truth. And I think, sometimes we got to look in the mirror and realize our wives are more right than they're wrong. And so I let my kid make the decision to where he wanted to go. He wanted to go to Cleveland. So I took the job, and just frankly, I set my career back a little bit because West High was loaded. We'd just gotten beaten in semis. We were going to be good for the next 4 or 5 years. They've since won 2 state championships in a row, 23 and 22. I would have been there as the OC as that happened. But we came to Cleveland. My son had a great experience. I got a chance to make a real impact on hiring the offensive line coach. I hired a guy named Chase Fleming from Ringgold High in Georgia. Chase came up, coached my kid for 2 years, had a huge impact on his life. My son got out of there with a really good education, got an academic scholarship to go be an electrical engineer. So he had a great experience. Mine was miserable. Mine was absolutely miserable. I was working for somebody I didn't respect and didn't have a relationship with, and I don't mind airing that because he and I, we're never going to speak again. But, it was tough. It was really tough. And so going into the third year there, this would have been 2022. We got to the summer, and I'd been telling the offensive staff all spring, Chris, I'm like, man, I don't know if I can keep working for this guy. My son's graduating. I just don't think I can keep doing it. It's just, it's just not good. And so it finally came to a head, man, in June of, I guess it was July. It was July of that year. And we kind of just finally agreed to disagree. And he wanted to know my honest opinion on something. He asked the wrong question, and I gave him the right answer. And so that was it. And so I did not coach in 2022. And what scared me a little bit was I didn't miss it like I thought I would. That's what really spooked me, man. I really thought I'm going to miss it. I'm going to want to go to practices and study and this and that. And I went to one practice that whole season. I went and watched University of Tennessee Chattanooga practice one day, and I went to one game that a buddy of mine was a head coach at, and that's it. And I didn't watch it. I didn't study it. I got away from it. And I was teaching elementary school PE and loving that. And I thought, you know what? This might be what I'm doing for the rest of my career. And then I got the itch again. And then this opportunity at Rockmart came about through one of the guys on our staff. And then Rhett Parson, our O-line coach, knowing Chad Estes. And it just kind of blossomed from there. I went down and met with Biff Parson one day and About a week later, he calls, says, I want you to be my quarterback coach. And, next thing you know, I'm at Rockmart and driving from Chattanooga every day, but it's a great gig. And the Parsons are good people and the school's good. And, anybody that knows North, kind of West, I always kid them. I say, y'all ain't North Georgia. You're not close enough. With that area of football, man, I mean, Rockmart Yellow Jacks are pretty dang special. So it's been cool to be a part of that. It really has been cool and has really reignited my fire and to, want to be a head football coach again. But I also like winning, man. So I'm going to stay there for a while.
That's awesome. I know the Parsons real well. I'm going to get to see them next weekend as well. I'm going to try to get Ronnie P on here. Their dad.
That's legend right there now.
He's one of the best humans I've ever met.
No doubt. He's around a lot. It's been cool to get to know him.
He was our AD at Villa Rica when I was there, and him and Miss Heidi, my wife thinks the world of them. So you're real big on the clinic circuit. Talk about that a little bit.
I don't know about that. I just think I know a lot of people. I think I'm like you, dude. I don't know that I've ever met a stranger. I'm terrible with names, but I'm gonna remember a face pretty good.
Well, you've gotten to speak a lot. I mean, you get to go around and talk, and you've done a lot of clinics. You go and talk to people. You speak to staffs when they want somebody to come in. I mean, you have a system, a way you do things, and you put stuff together. You're organized. I mean, it's pretty cool. Yeah,
I think I've always been sort of a type A OCD. I mean, I was that kid. I mean, and you have been open about your diagnosis and personally, and I have too. I think I was that kid that had ADHD before they knew what the hell it was, and so I had to learn coping mechanisms and ways to navigate life on a day-to-day basis. And so I was the kid in elementary school that took all his G.I. Joe and Star Wars toys and would line them up, and they were organized, in one part of my room. It wasn't like a big pile, and so that's just how I've always been. Like, you go in my closet right now and my clothes are hung left to right by color.
Yeah, mine too.
And so I have taught myself how to do that. So, just over time, taking a system that I was taught as a really young coach and refining, and then getting a chance to really get thrown in the fire early as an OC. I remember when I got offered the job at Monday's Mill, I went to lunch with my head coach, with Coach Rankin, and he's like, look, he had great advice, man. He said, and I was that dumb, stupid young coach that would sit there and argue with that dude. And he's the winningest coach in Tennessee's history. And I would argue with him about stuff like, no, I don't think that's right. And they just all look at me like, you're an idiot. Shut up. But I think he respected that. But I think we went to lunch that day and I said, look, coach, I think I'm going to take this job. And he said, listen, you're not ready. He said, you know our system, but you don't know football. And he said, but you're never going to know football and learn football until you're thrown in the deep end of the pool, and you have to figure it out and come up with your own answers. And so I felt like that was him saying, look, man, I'm going to kick you out the nest. You got to go. And so I did. And I really respect that. But it really made me really try to start figuring out, what the hell do I believe in? What do I believe in football wise? And what can I coach and what can I answer? And I think that's the thing young coordinators, like when I get asked, today alone, man, through Twitter and whatnot, I've probably had 3 or 4 different young coaches wanting to set up calls and stuff and talk. And I always try to tell them the same thing, man, you got to figure out what you believe in. But more than that, you better figure out what you can answer. Like, everybody wants to draw power, but can you run power when they're folding the alley player in? What's your answer for that? How do you answer that within your system? And so, and it's been cool to be able to go speak at these clinics, because you go sit in on sessions and you realize, man, these cats really know ball. And then I get up there and I'm like, over time, I've gotten more confident with, these are my answers and this is why. And if you don't like it, that's perfectly fine. But that's just what I believe in.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, our coach is an offensive guy, and that was one of the big things he used to tell me when I was helping on that side was, I want answers. I got to have answers. And, I'd never really thought about it that way, because I've always been a defensive guy. And I'm like, well, I'm a read and react guy. So I'm whatever you line up in, I'm just going to respond to it. So, y'all are going to do what y'all do, and I'm just going to try to match it. And I'm a number savant. So, it's a numbers game for me. So I just try to match numbers and, play it that. Everything's a math problem to me. So it was just interesting hearing it from that side of the ball that, you got to have answers. But if you don't have a, fundamental baseline of what you believe and what it is you're trying to do, and can your kids do it?
Yeah, it's been, I'll reference this season, 2023 season. I come into Rockmart and Biff's had a lot of quarterback coaches come through, and Biff was a quarterback, a very successful quarterback, and he's coached quarterbacks successfully. So I remember in our interview, he's like, look, man, I've not had any quarterback coach that's come through here with your kind of experience. He said, so it's going to be a learning curve for us, more. And he said, just from the sense of, and I knew what he was trying to say. Like, dude, I don't really know you that well. I can look at your resume and say you're qualified, but we've never worked together kind of deal, And so it was kind of feeling each other out early on. And then, we're kind of figuring it out. And I think the other thing is, Biff it's funny. He's a wing T-ish guy run game wise, but he's an old school Cadillac post dig, shallow cross stuff offensively and shot play guy. And so, I come in and I'm hey man, flat routes and hitches and curl routes are great. That's the greatest plays in football, in my opinion, to throw the football. And so we really kind of found our way and meshed through that stuff. And, we had a quarterback change, which was tough. And that was a ballsy call by him, man. I mean, I got to give him credit. This kid was a 3-year starter. They'd won a ton of games. I think they hadn't lost a region game in 7 years, so like he's doing it right, but we had to make a quarterback change, and we go with this senior that had never really played. And next thing you know, the dude takes over second quarter game 3 and has the best quarterback season in Rockmart history. 2,400 yards passing and 25 touchdowns, and I don't know, double-digit rushing touchdowns and 700 yards run. I mean, he just has this great year. And literally, dude, we threw a bubble hitch RPO, we threw hitches, we threw curl flat, we threw jet sweep, seam wheel, and some post routes. I mean, that's really all we did. But I knew Biff trusted me when I was in the box and the quarterback would come off, and I had one of the assistants give him the headsets, and Biff would say like, "Hey man, get him right on this." "Yes sir, I got him." So he was letting me talk to him. I knew that's when it really kind of blossomed for us.
And y'all had a great, great year.
We did, man. It was, it's cool it's fun because I've been a part of that championship game now 4 or 5 times and won it. That's cool. But, I guess I take a little pride in the fact that everybody that watched the state championships in Georgia this year, it's hard to argue that the Rockmart Pierce game wasn't the best damn game there. I mean, by far.
Oh, yeah, it was a good game, and it didn't matter to me which one of y'all won.
Yeah,
I had
you had
friends
buddies
on both sides.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like, God, 48-45, triple overtime, I mean, it just –
it's one of those you hate. It's one of those you hate to see.
Yes.
You hate – I mean, you almost want to go back to just split it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like –
after 2 overtimes, just split it.
I didn't really get to see much of anybody else's, and it's not like I didn't want to, but man, after we lost, I'm like, man, screw football for a while. I want to get away.
Yeah.
But I feel like our game, and you probably saw them and know the scores more. I don't know that there were 2 more evenly matched teams than ours, and 2 different teams. Like, we're out there slinging it and getting it on the perimeter, and and they're just like, we're gonna line up and let this cat daddy back here run it 51, 52 times and bloody noses. And, I know this, our kids walked out of that game and they were everybody, our staff and our kids, everybody on both sides that I know were physically and mentally just like spent.
Well, y'all the key is the community. Y'all sure ain't got nothing to hang your head about. That was a phenomenal season, game, and everything else. But moving on to other things, tell me the story about painting the field.
The story. All right, dude, and I'm not going to use his name because he's actually a head coach here in Tennessee, and he's a good dude. I still call him a kid. That staff I had at East Ridge, man, they were all young when I got the job, and so I feel like I raised half of them. But so, and this is let me get off on a tangent. I don't know how much time we got, but
you got as much time as you want.
You hear, like in your intro. He's an old head. These damn youngins are getting on my nerves.
Yeah,
right?
and I mean young coaches. I don't mean the kids. I mean
I know.
coaches.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, and so I see that conversation a lot on Twitter. what's a Twitter coach? These young coaches, blah, 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 blah. Well, here's what don't let me, I will forget. I will get back to the story, I promise, the field painting story. But like, here's the thing that I don't know that the game today really has that we had when we were younger was, like, number one, we came in and we worked for these guys who were giants.
Yeah.
And there was just a natural reverence, almost like a reverence working for them, and you were always trying to soak up whatever you could. And so you would go to a clinic and you'd just sit around and listen, and there's something, not to sound corny or romantic, but there's something beautiful about a football staff walking off the practice field on a Wednesday, going in, grabbing them a Coke, and then turning around and going and starting to pull a line and pop a string and paint a field. Yep. You develop camaraderie out there, just busting each other's chops and telling jokes and telling funny stories, and you get to know each other, and I don't know how much that happens anymore. I think, and then like, even go back to, I remember as a young coach, 97, 8, 9, 2001, 2, I remember Sundays, my job was to go over to WT's truck stop and get the cheeseburger plates for the coaches and go trade film and, burn DVDs. And I know, like, the young guys are like, man, screw that. We got huddle. Yeah, well, we didn't have huddle. And
yeah.
I just feel like there's something about that's gone, that nostalgia's gone. I don't know that it's ever going to come back. And that's sad, man, because I think our game's going to miss that. But here's the story. So we're at Reese Ridge High, and we're going to paint the field. And the field paint machine literally is older than me at that time. And so this coach and I are out there, and we're kind of doing it during the school day. And and what makes it funnier is we both had on Nike. Nike used to make that 3-pocket short, dude, that was, and I think they're coming back. They're one of the greatest coaching shorts ever. So what we're doing is he's putting the screwdriver in, running across the field, restringing, popping it, and I'm painting it. None of those guys wanted the responsibility of screwing up the line. They didn't want me yelling at him. So I'm the painter. He's the string popper. And so he puts the screwdriver in about the 25-yard line on the home side. He jogs across the field and he puts the screwdriver in. He walks out to the middle and he turns and faces away from me, facing the visitor sideline, pulls that string high and pops it. And when he lets go, the screwdriver comes out of the ground on the home side. And Chris, it's like a bow and arrow shot. And that screwdriver stuck through the shorts into his hamstring.
Oh no.
And I'm like sitting there looking, and I saw the string, the string wobbling. I saw the screwdriver fly. But I would have never in a million years thought that and it was a flat head screwdriver.
Oh, God.
I would have never thought it would have went through those shorts and stuck. And next thing I know, dude, he goes down like a sniper shot him. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I run out there and it's bleeding and we have to pull it out and it's got dirt in it and everything else, man.
Oh,
so
no.
We take some alcohol, we squirt it off, we kind of give him a towel. And he's like, good, I'm driving to the hospital. So he goes to the hospital, has to get a tetanus shot, get some stitches. And like, dude, what's the worst part is it was just he and I. Nobody else was there to see it. And I don't know that he's ever retold the story, but I've retold it 1,000 times. Still one of the greatest field paint things I've ever laid eyes on and one of the saddest, but it's one of the greatest I've ever seen, man.
That is insane.
Oh, dude.
I've got some field painting stories, but I've never seen anybody get impaled by a freaking screwdriver.
There you go. Dude, I was just like, and then when you go, and what's funny is, how coaches are, you go and you retell it to the older coaches and they're like, bull crap, man. That didn't happen.
That didn't happen. Yeah, I swear.
Dude, it really did.
I kid you not, it happened. Well, it's like my best paint story happened in Americus, and Michael Pollock was the head coach, and we had a group we started out, we had a group, the maintenance guys, they painted the field.
Yep.
So the first time they do it, they come up there and they're like, we need to see Coach Pollock. And I kind of ran interference, to determine whether something was important enough to bother him. He needs to be bothered with. Don't bother him with that.
No doubt.
And they're like, hey, we got a problem with the field. And I'm like, he probably needs to know about that. So I go get him. We both walk out there and we're standing on top of the stadium. And, they've got the G 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 on one side. They've got it. I mean, it looks good. And I'm sitting there thinking, what could possibly be the problem? And the old boy goes, Coach, as you can see, we've got this side painted, and we know we'll do the other side too, but we can't find the 60, the 70, the 80, or the 90 stencils to do.
Oh, Lord, man. There you go.
So that's when I became in charge of painting the fields.
Good grief.
I thought it was hilarious.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Head football coach didn't think it was funny at all.
I remember this. Like, this is how far I'll go back. Like, so somewhere around, I guess when I got to East Ridge, honestly, I had a group of dads. So I painted the field at Riverdale. We went to Monday's Mill. We had to paint the practice field because, everybody in Clayton County played at, 12 Oaks, and I can't remember those community stadiums. And then, Grayson, back in the day, Grayson had money. I mean, it was that was a money place. And so, them daddies painted it. But we would help the field, practice field, whatever. But when I went to East Ridge, there was an old guy. He had been the principal, and he would come out and paint the field some. And he did it for a year, and then he kind of got in some bad health. But he was like, look, if you'll just call the city, they'll come out every year, and they have GPS coordinates to mark your four corners. Well, I mean, how many young guys realize you used to go out there with a freaking screwdriver and get on your hands and knees and have to poke down into the ground to find mistakes?
Yeah.
And that was coaching.
Be 8 to 15 grown men out there with screwdrivers stabbing the ground.
No doubt. And just hoping.
Like an Easter egg hunt. I found one. Never mind. That was a rock.
And there was always one or two that you just couldn't find no matter how many sticks you had.
Yeah.
Then you'd have 4 or 5 guys in a 3x3 radius area just beating the crap out of the ground trying to find that stick.
Hey, I know it's here. And then somebody, why don't we just dig holes and put PVC pipes down and cap them? Or you get somebody, I'm over there going, just find one. We can use the Pythagorean theorem and everybody's looking at me like, shut up, Lamb. We'll find them.
You would be the guy.
I'm like, dude, we're sitting here. Why are we wasting? This is wasting time. But it was spending time together.
That's it. I mean, and like you talk about, and I have, man, you brought it up. I've been fortunate to get to go and share and talk and, do podcasts and different things, but I look at it cool this way too. Like I've gotten to be buddies with a coach from North Pickerington High School in Ohio through the board drill podcast that I did about 3 or 4 weeks ago. This guy, hit me up, and like a week later, I'm in my garage with my whiteboard. I got my laptop set up on a rolling cart right by my shop vac, and we're doing a 2-hour Zoom on how I run wide zone. And so like now, he and I've got to be buddies, and he's drove through Chattanooga the other day and stopped at Buc-ee's, and we're talking about, so that to me, like getting to go speak at a clinic is really cool. It's an honor. I mean, I don't care if it's a small clinic, big clinic. It's an honor. That's the way I really look at it. It's an honor to be able to go do it, but then like I've heard you talk with just about every coach on these podcasts about going to the clinic. Well, you get a chance to go and see guys you haven't seen in forever. And what people don't understand outside of our profession is this, like Chris Lamb and I could run into each other at a Nike clinic. And I'm telling you that I think the last time me and you actually were in the same space together was at the Georgia Dome in like 2003-04.
Yeah,
but
probably.
We'd pick up just like we've seen each other last week, man. I mean, it's just that's what coaching is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's the way it should be. And I'm worried that the younger guys aren't that way.
I think you're right.
Because they're more trying to knock each other off, trying to knock each other out instead of
who's getting the hot take first.
Yeah, instead of trying to help each other get to where they're trying to get, they're trying to one up. I don't know. I don't. Maybe I'm seeing it wrong, but that just seems to be. They don't take care of each other like we took care of each other.
I heard somebody the other day say this. It's kind of 2 points. One he said, and one that kind of got me thinking. Like, he said, he was talking about what other profession where you're in competition do you actually sit down and help each other? Coke and Pepsi aren't getting together and having strategy sessions. No. Microsoft and Google aren't doing that. Ford and Chevy aren't sitting down and comparing notes. But I remember, again, I've been fortunate, man. I've been really fortunate in my career to do some really cool things. And I was thinking back just a few 3 or 4 weeks ago about this. And I remember walking into Mercedes-Benz Stadium and looking around, and I remember thinking, man, football has really taken me to some cool places. And I don't know if 24, 5-year-old Tracy Malone really understood, just how cool this game is and how it was going to change my life. And I know that the lessons this game has taught me has really gotten me through a couple of times in my life where I was at rock bottom, and it was tough, man. But I remember thinking in those times, man, when your life's falling apart and you're a head coach and it's a small town and everybody knows and the media knows, and it's just all blowing up. And I remember thinking, football has taught you, Tracy, nobody gives a damn. Get up, fight your ass off, go save what needs to be saving, go stand up for what you believe in, and don't quit. And so I really am blessed to have this game, because, and that's stuff that I don't know if young guys that have really, what kind of adversity have they experienced? Everybody's experienced adversity, but there's guys that are in their early 20s that are coordinators. Have they really chewed enough dirt and had enough blood to get there? Maybe not. I don't know. But I know I'm thankful for the journey I've taken.
Well, I'm glad you shared it with us today, Coach, and I appreciate you coming on with us. And it's not going to be long before you're a head coach again. You done reignited the fire, and it won't be long before we're in the same building again.
No doubt.
And I can't wait till we are and we pick up where we left off.
Man, well, I tell you what, brother, you are one of the guys in football. I don't care what state, but you're one of the guys in football that I think everybody that has an opportunity to interact with you or know you comes away with you know what? Yeah, that's like the kids say, he's a G, man. That dude's old school and he does it for the right reasons, and he's got his convictions and what he believes and what's right and wrong, and he don't mind standing up for it. And, that's the kind of dudes we need in this game, man. That's the kind of dudes that we have to keep cultivating. I won't use his name, but there's a young buck up here in Tennessee, man. He's probably got 15, 20,000 Twitter followers. And I was sort of the first dude that kind of took him under my wing when he got here. He came from another state, and he's pissed off a lot of people because he's opinionated, but we're to the point now where he'll call me with well, what do you think? What do you think? And so I feel like, you know what? If we can get these young cats to just find one dude with some gray hair that they'll just kind of reach out to with a, what do you think? Maybe we'll be all right in the end.
Well, I appreciate it. I don't know. I'm a nobody from nowhere that ain't never done nothing. I just say funny things sometimes and look at things a little bit differently and just try to pass on, what other people have taught me, and don't make the same mistakes I did, for God's sakes. That's the biggest thing is
I'm telling you,
don't take the dirt road I took. I want you to drive on a nice, paved, smooth road.
Well, let me kind of get out of here with this. Okay. You brought up getting to speak at clinics and podcasts and stuff. And I always share this. When I speak at a clinic or a podcast. I'm speaking at a clinic in Marietta in 2 days, on Saturday, day after tomorrow. And I actually helped the guy organize it. And it's 30 minutes. You got 30 minutes, and you got to give us the best thing you do in your program. And that's it. And you got no secrets. Lay it out. And I will take 2 or 3 minutes of my time and share this. In 2015, we had the best season in East Ridge High School history. We went 10-0 in the regular season. I was named Region Coach of the Year. I was named Chattanooga Times Free Press Best of Preps Coach of the Year for North Georgia, North Alabama, and Southeast Tennessee. And I got so caught up in pouring concrete into the pedestal of the Coach Malone statue that everybody was building that I really lost my way, and I forgot the fact that Tracy Malone's more important than Coach. Tracy is Kim's husband. He's Reed and Tate's dad. He's Larry and Brenda's son. He is so many things outside of football coach. Now, I'm honored to be a football coach, and I'm proud of what I do, but it's really not who I am. That season, we were sort of the local media darlings, on TV a lot, getting interviewed all the time, in the paper all the time. And I was eating it up, man. And so my family and I would go to dinner, and I would make sure that I was going to wear East Ridge clothes. I wanted to be recognized. I wanted the attention. I'd completely spun out of how I was raised. And then it all went to hell. And so what I learned from leaving there, going to Whitwell, driving to Knoxville every hour and a half there, hour and a half back every day, 3 hours in the car for 3 years. What I learned was this, that Tracy's more important than Coach. And so, we were talking earlier about how I have got these self-coping mechanisms of how to keep my ADD under control and being organized and whatnot. So one of the things that I kind of taught myself then that sticks with me is this, 2 lessons that I really learned from going through tough times, and football helped me, and my pastor helped me too. The first one was this: when you make a mistake, and this was not my words, this is me quoting, and I'll use his name. This is me quoting Powell Grisham. Powell Grisham was a preacher at a church here in Chattanooga we went to. He and I went to high school together, and he said, Tracy, what you got to understand is no matter what mistake you make in life, he said, God always taught us, God and Jesus taught us to forgive. And he said, but Christians, he said, we're the first ones to shoot our wounded and the last ones to forgive. And that really rang true with me. Like, it don't matter what you do. I don't care if you run a stop sign. There's going to be people judging you in our game. And so him saying that to me really rang true. And the other thing was this: always remember Tracy's more important than Coach. And so if you ever see me out, if I am at practice or I'm in a game or I'm representing Rockmart at a clinic setting, I'll have on the black and gold. I'll have on the yellow jacket. I'll have on the R. I'll have on our stuff. But other than that, brother, I don't put football clothes on at any point in time. That is my reminder every day. Tracy's more important than Coach. You only wear Rockmart stuff when you're representing Rockmart. Other than that, you are Reed and Tate's dad, Kim's husband. You're Tracy Malone. You don't have to wear the flag. And so I like to share that when I speak or when involved in anything, because I think that that's a lesson, that young coaches really, really, really can kind of take and hopefully can understand what that means, what that message is, and can apply it, because, what we do, man, it's important. But when I was out selling real estate, I'll end with this. I walked into the real estate office and people are like, well, where'd you come from? And this, that, and I'm like, well, I'm a high school football coach. Chris, there were so many people that didn't have a damn clue that there was high school football in Chattanooga, didn't have a damn clue that games were going on, and could care less about it.
Nope, don't care.
We sort of put ourselves in a fishbowl, and sometimes we think everybody in the world is looking at the fishbowl. They're really not. I mean,
no, they don't even know there's a fish.
That's exactly right. So, I mean, I try to remind myself, look, dude, you're really not that important, even though, and I'm not trying to stroke your ego, bro, but even though like getting to do this is a big deal. I mean, you have a ton of followers and a lot of people listen to this. I listen to it every morning driving to work, but I remind myself daily, look, man, you're just Tracy, and that's okay. That's where you're supposed to be and what you need to do. And I think that the game has helped me remember that.
Well, I sure do appreciate your friendship, and I sure do appreciate you coming on, and I sure do appreciate you just being Tracy.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it, man.
Well, Coach, we'll holler at you. Thanks for being on. And if you ever need anything, you can always call me.
And you know what? That phone goes both ways, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
All right, Chris. Thanks, man.